session is from Alan Chai. Alan is a huge advocate of the Power Platform. He's absolutely leading the way in the industry adoption of Power Platform. Schlumberger is a huge organisation where Alan has a huge amount of champions and citizen developers working on the Power Platform.
Yeah, my session is going to be slightly different, from what you have seen this all throughout the last few sessions. Where I'm coming from is very much on enterprise focus, business focus, right? So, but I'm going to pick a few examples here. One example here that is pretty common in most businesses that we all see is whereby we want to achieve end-to-end business process orchestration. So when I started this journey, I was thrown with a few challenges, which I will explain shortly. But first off, a quick title, explain why I say all in is because I put a challenge to my team whereby I want them to grow their maturity in Power Platform beyond looking at individual apps. So we have over the last few years developed our community in various portfolio of Power Platform, right? People are focusing on their skill set in Power Apps, in Power Automates, and they were really good in that, right? So now I'm driving the organization to the next level whereby I want them to start crossing the portfolio and be able to extract the best of all these things together and then achieve a solution out of it to address the end-to-end process problem, right? So, but first up, for those who do not know me, my name is Alan, right? So I have myself built about 175 apps to date that are in production. I've trained and coached 350 plus citizen developers across the globe, internal, external, many of them. And I took out a challenge to train someone from zero, to be able to the state whereby the person can cruise on his own or on her own to build apps like me, right, or build solution. So I've been 23 years actually. My slide I just missed that update. Last 2 weeks ago I hit 23 years in the same company. I'm an electrical engineer. So I'm also an MVP, and I just received an email today. Pretty happy that I got renewed. Today is July 1st. I think most MVP will receive their email. I'm also like Sancho, I'm one of the Power Apps champ, one of the 24. So if you want to connect, there are various methods you can reach out to me, my Twitter, LinkedIn, and there's a nice article down there in Microsoft blog, aka.ms/meet Alan. You'll find some of my journey in there. Yeah. So a bit of the stars to give you some indication of what I'm talking about in my setup, in the day-to-day things that I'm playing with. We have one of the largest tenant in the world, 21,000 apps to date. So it's 3 years old, but we have 21,000 apps. Incredible amount of interest from my community, internal community. Teams was launched end last year. To date, we have 1,200 Teams app. And on the self-service report in Power BI, we have over 50,000 that are self-service. This is excluding the corporate dashboard that are driven by the IT. If you take on that, we have a few more thousand on top. Automate, we have 32,000 flows that are live. And of that, every day we have over 2 million transactions of Power Automate. Successful transaction every day in the tenant. So that means 2,000 tasks has been automated by flow, self-service. These are built by our people. Something that we are lacking behind, I must be very frank, is the virtual agent, right? Virtual agent, we still, after almost a year, we are still quite behind. I'm not sure what other companies are doing, but based on the numbers, compared to the apps, the flow is significantly smaller. Yeah. I think one of the challenge that we face with Power Virtual Agent is finding the right use case. So, but it will certainly grow, and we have certainly see some pretty advanced features lately. Yeah. And across the platform, we have 6,000 active makers. So that's my internal community that we built over the last 3 years. Yeah. And it is one of the largest and also very active. They are everywhere. And a lot of them are also in Power Addicts community. And of that, last year we had one of the biggest internal hackathon with 1,500 participants from across the world, 42 countries. Yeah, it's one of the biggest. It was extremely exciting. Yeah, so it's in a nutshell, it's a huge setup. Yeah, fairly complex, and also a lot of consideration in terms of security, data loss prevention, right? DLP needs to be in place to make sure that we operate in a very safe manner. So what I'm going to tell you today is focusing on one particular approach. I want to explain. This is more like an approach to use Power Platform to replace a suite of services that we used to have, right? So we used to use, I can be open here, is IBM BPM, yeah, IBM BPM to orchestrate a end-to-end process. For example, if I look at the transaction hub in our finance hub, right? They receive an invoice from a vendor, and then from there, somebody needs to scan it, somebody needs to read it, somebody needs to enter the data somewhere, right? And then they kick off various process in the ERP until we release the payment to the vendor, right? That end-to-end process, it used to be like 20 handshakes, right? Whereby we need to pass the batons between departments. So we look at those processes by processes, and then we say, how can we automate them? We bring in tools like IBM BPM, right? And been running there for a few years, and they're extremely expensive, right? So been challenged to see, can we turn that into low code, right? So I'm going to share with you one example here that also pretty complex, pretty unstructured. Yeah. So I'm going to give you this challenge, describe this challenge that we commonly see. We have new data points being created, very scattered in Excel, right? Not one Excel, but hundreds of Excel in multiple countries. Yeah, they're highly unstructured and high volume, lots of that, right? Lots of users as well, and very manual, right? Whenever there's an update, somebody go to their Excel, their favorite Excel, they punch in the numbers, and then that numbers magically somebody needs to collect them and consolidate the number. And all these users, they are Excel diehard, right? So they can't use any other tool than Excel. So that's the challenge. And then from there, they send all this Excel to two people. I say down there 2 FTEs, right? 2 full-time equivalents. Someone centrally that accept those requests, right? Those submission by email. They have to open the attachment one by one, hundreds of them every single month, right? And they do manual data validation in email. And the bottleneck is with the 2 FTEs. Super time consuming, super easy to make errors, right? Reporting is not accurate. Processing figure sometimes can be mistake wrong numbers, right? And then from there, the FTEs, the 2 finance person in this example, have to reference multiple other business system or ERP, right? Of different types. Some come in Excel, some come in list, some come in the SharePoint somewhere, and some from another dashboard in Power BI. They have to cross-check all this system, and then lots of inefficiency because they have to run places, and it's lack of integration, right? And then after they cross-check and say, oh, the status is like this, that I need to check 4 items before I approve this request. And then once they have done that, they approve, they produce another report, right? Another report that they need to present to their chief. So the final output is again not data driven, very manual, and no single source of truth because it is in either PowerPoint or it's another Excel that they distribute around. This is the flow, right? The challenge. Multiply that with 15,000 times a year, right? So now that become a gigantic issue, right? A big issue that for the company, you are repeating this inefficiency every single month, 15,000 times, right? Does it sound familiar? So the challenge come to me and say, can we automate this entire thing, right? So this is just one, I picked this example because it's very common in most organizations. I'm pretty sure most of you would have seen somehow or another in some use cases like this. So what do I do with this, right? I could go back to my expensive tool to do that, right? Or I say, okay, I want to reduce the spend there and focus on what I have invested in Power Platform and extract the best out of it, right? So I challenge the team and say, let's see what we can do with low code, right? So pretty familiar to most of you too. So let's dive in, right? So let's take the first box, right? We have a new data points. So what do I do? These are die-hard Excel user. So fine, I keep it as Excel. And because the volume is high, right? So, and I cannot overnight train these hundreds of people to use a certain tool and change their years of behavior. It takes time to change the behavior. But what I did was I locked down a template, right? At least I'm able to keep this data structure coming in, right? So I allow the medium to be in Excel, which is fairly interesting, right? And then from there, I create a space where they can just simply drop their file, their favorite Excel, into a central library in SharePoint. So making it one single place rather than everything going to email that depend on 2 person, right? So I have visibility. Basically, this is to create visibility of new data points coming in. And then I introduce data flow, Power BI data flow, to convert all these files into some tables, automatically, okay? And then make that data flow to be consumable by Power BI dashboard. So basically, I'm performing the ETL, right? Extract, transform, and load in this process using existing Office tool and Power Platform tool. For those who have not played with data flow, this will be a good opportunity to go explore it. It is fantastic. To me, it is one great tool allowing self-service ETL. Basically, you have a self-service ETL capability to build your own virtual data lake, right? That can be shared across multiple solutions. Okay. From there, now you see, multiply that again. Once you keep multiplying your real use case, you realize that, okay, this is a huge problem. You need some sort of structure. So that was the first challenge, right? I take the data point, structure them, and have a mechanism to turn them into something useful using data flow. Then the SharePoint library, whereby in this case, it's a simple, modern site as a point of entry, where you allow them to download the template. They play, and then after that, they fill up their data in that very locked down template in Excel. They drop it off in the library, and then they just wait, and then they will see their instant approval, near instant approval on the step 3, which is what I'm going to explain. So that is all the user is seeing. The 100+ user is seeing just this, but behind the scene is all taken care of by Power Platform. So the first step is the Power BI data flow, right? So Power BI data flow is available in your Power BI workspace. It doesn't need to be premium. Even a standard workspace, you have this data flow capability. That's where you start. Once you open up the Power BI data flow, you will see some familiar connectors. Yeah, these connectors are what made available at the workspace for you to start performing Power Query. Yeah, Power Query is the ETL tool. Yeah, ETL tool for you to do the extraction, transformation, and loading of those Excel into some structured data. So that's where I start to say, pick the SharePoint folder, apply my SharePoint site URL, sign in, and then bang, I will be able to then connect to that folder, and it will then just suck in all the Excel file, right? And start putting them into rows. It will actually read those hundreds of Excel and turn them into the table. And then you can start playing with your steps to create that final output that you want. Yeah. So the beauty of this is that you build once, and then this become a data flow or a virtual data lake for all your other solutions, right? So that's the beauty of it. Super portable, super reusable for other instances. And once you build this, because it's sitting in the workspace, you can schedule it to refresh per the standard or the premium workspace requirement. So again, that is another beauty of it. You literally automate a data collection process through just that Power BI data flow. So that's the first bit, Power BI component, right? Then after that, you go to your Power BI. Your Power BI is where you start connecting, like getting a data point through Power BI data flow, get data, Power BI data flow, and then you will see all the data flows that you have access to it, right? So the one that I created show up here, and then you just click on it, and the data table, the final output will show up. And that's where you plug into your standard Power BI and start doing all the visualization. And you can add on other data source if you want to, right? So it is acting like a low-code, no-code self-service data lake. But I didn't stop there because I want to interact with the data, right? So that's where I started to ask the business process and say, when they did the second steps, when they received the email, what do? They actually went through some checkpoint, right? They have some rule sets that say, if this submission, is this case in the scope? Yeah. Whether this is between the duration that is allowed, right? That's what I call the traffic light check, the rule sets. So then you start converting those business rule sets into Power BI rule set. Yeah. And with that, now you're able to conditionize the submission of each cases. And then from there, bring in Power Apps, right? Bring in Power Apps into your Power BI and start allowing your user to interact and action on those data. So the aim here was to replace this email process, right, and the manual check with the Power BI dashboard, your rule sets, and the actionable Power Apps to do manual overrides or approval, manual approval. And then Power Automate to force a trigger to refresh your dataset in a Power BI. So that is the concept. And then how do you do that? So what I did was I built an app, a Power App that is embedded into a Power BI. Yeah. So if you look at this is actually a Power BI, but this little table, is actually a Power Apps that emulate the look and feel of a Power BI table. And then with that, you're actually allowing your user to be able to click row by row and have a button where they can go in and approve a particular submission, right? And if you see all these traffic lights, actually, these are the rule sets. based on the rule sets of the business workflow, if I see 4 greens, it is auto-approved. That is how the guys, when they submit their Excel within 30 minutes, when the case is processed by the next refresh in the Power BI premium workspace, they will be able to see that, oh, I met the 4 condition and it's approved. I get my money, $18,000 immediately. Yeah. So it saves time. Yeah. And it create visibility to the business, and almost instant refresh if when the manual trigger is pushed by Power Automate. So, and at the same time, because this is a Power Apps, I can also do bulk acceptance, right? So I allow the controller or the finance guys to play with the slicer in the Power BI, and this will filter the rows in the Power Apps. And then from there, they say, if I meet all these conditions, even though they're under review, that's where I can override and say, accept all these 1,000 items in one go, right? So that is the approval side. And then when you look into the Power Apps integration with Power BI, one of the common challenge that people face is that when they do the updates, they realize that when I interact with the data through the embedded Power Apps in Power BI, the Power BI data source is not refreshed, right? So that was the biggest challenge. So in this instance, what I do is I do dual source connection on the apps. So you embed this app in your Power BI. By default, it has this Power BI integration as the data source in your app. Yeah. But it doesn't stop you from adding more data sources, right? So what I did was I keep things that are read-only, things that are read-only attributes coming from Power BI integration. Things that I want to talk to dynamically, live, despite the fact that I'm using SharePoint as a data source, which is a non-direct query method, which is fine because you can do a dual source connection to your apps. And with that, those attributes that needs update, you write them directly. You patch them between your apps, right? With that, once you patch this to your SharePoint list, and the SharePoint list will then have Power Automate trigger a refresh to look back to your Power BI to force a refresh, right? So with that, you close the loop, right? So the integration become more closely knitted and meaningful to the user. And then finally, the solution looks like this, right? So you have new data points with structured Excel template and lockdown, right? So because it's locked down, so now I can control the data that is coming in a structured way. And then I have the SharePoint as the entry point, right? For the end user, they only see this as their tool. Behind the scene, I have the data flow starting to work, the ETL. And then I have the Power BI doing the rule set, approval or rejection. I have the Power Apps to enable the manual override, the actionable bit of it. And then I have Power Automate to triggers on-demand refresh, right? And at the end, I have one single report in Power BI as the source of truth for management reporting, right? And it's always up to date. And with that, I achieve the replacement of this end-to-end automation fully on just Microsoft product here, right? Power Platform largely, right? With the exception of SharePoint. And here, end-to-end business process orchestration is achieved by one simple approach here. And with this, this is actually the real tool that I want to show you. Again, you see the status coming in, some that are with red traffic light, they automatically fall under review, and a certain thing that are rejected, you don't see some example here, but for greens is auto approve, so they know they'll get the money directly. And with that, with the 15,000 transaction per month, most of them, 85% of them, get their answer whether that submission is approved or rejected within 30 minutes. And this 30 minutes is actually only limited by the frequency, the fastest, the lowest frequency I can refresh Power BI report in a premium workspace. Yeah, today the fastest, the most frequent you can do is 30 minutes. If I do manual trigger, it can be shortened, right? And last year, just these two alone, it processed $1.2 billion of recharge, yeah, automatically through the tool. And of that, if you look at some stats here, of the close to 15,000, we have 12,000 of them, they are touchless approved. That means no human being touch those transactions, those submission. It run through the whole process, the tool take care of it and approve it, right? There are 73 of them that went through and got rejected, right? Because they didn't fulfill the traffic light rule sets. And the remaining are some anomalies, some special cases that needs manual approval. That's where I allow that interaction in the tool for Power Apps to come in and enable the tool controller to come in and do manual overrides, right? Candidly, end of last year, I spoke to the finance folk and say, now that you have the tool, you have run it for 1 year. If I turn it off, today, if I turn it off, to achieve this 15,000 transactions per month at a speed of 30 minutes, how many controller or financial controller you need to hire to process this, to do all that manual job? They calculated is 107 FTEs. Yeah. So imagine how powerful the message is in here is that we are able to use a digital tool to relieve our people from this mundane, transactional, day-to-day repeatable tasks. So that all these tasks can be taken away. They just have to focus on the smaller amount than the 15,000, right? And with that, it's quick and easy. Just want to share this approach. It's a slightly different approach that we started to emphasize a lot more internally in Schlumberger, whereby we focus on looking at how to use the whole package as a tool rather than individual portfolio of Power Platform as tool, right? We want our maker to be able to be more all-rounded, make the best use of every single component to form a solution. Don't try to do reporting in Power Apps. That's what I always tell my people, right? You will struggle. It's not saying that it cannot be done, but you will struggle big time, right? Use what the tool can give you best. Power BI is good in reporting, visualization. Focus there, right? Build charts there, build your fancy visualization down there. But when you start talking to the data, that's where Power Apps come in, right? Power Apps allow you to talk to the data, bring in Power Apps, and work together with Power BI. And then you have dirty data, right? Unstructured data coming from Excel. Make use of data flow, right? Make sure the data flow to clean it up, do the ETL that for you, and you have a clean pipe coming in for your tool, for your apps. So with that, I'm open for questions, if you have any questions. Okay, there's a question here. Am I a consulting company? No, I am not. I'm actually one of Microsoft's largest company. We are energy company. We have 85,000 employees worldwide. We are energy extraction production company. We are not a consulting company, but we are lots of engineers. So when we give them the Power Apps tool, they come up with all sorts of creative ideas to solve business problem. So there's a question from Douglas here. Did you have any extension by way of components built using PCF or DEX in the Power BI or DEX in Power BI at the backend, or just pure local solution? So for us, the Power BI side, obviously there's lots of heavy DEX, right? To form especially the rule sets. It's a lot of DEX writing. But we do not have components built in PCF for Power BI. Power BI is still just purely low code. Low code in the build out of the query. For the Power Apps side, yes, for the Power Apps side, we do have the component framework in terms of some of the reusable controls. That we follow our design language. We have a corporate design language that we follow internally. So we build those components based on that. This is the scary part, Sharon.
Yeah, I thought it was very cool.
It's just I present for you, and it's total silence.
There you go. Some feedback from John. Amazing, Alan. Truly end-to-end functional analysis and process improvement. Yeah, great session. I agree. I mean, there's like nothing to say. It's like it just wows us every time. Exactly how you pull these things together, Alan. There's a lot of imagination backed by a lot of skill. It's got to be said.
So one of the challenges that we face, to be honest, with the group is that we are in third year in the journey with Power Platform. But the company were not on premium connector license. Yeah, so we are just operating on standard, which is because it was just not financially justifiable to pay those kind of licensing costs for premium connector at the old price, and because of that, we have to operate very creatively, and at the same time do not break the rule, right? So we have to make sure that we are limited to SharePoint. So let's work between SharePoint. We don't have Dataverse at the time, but fortunately yesterday we signed a new deal, and also Microsoft just announced literally an hour ago. Price
literally 50% reduction. That's absolutely brilliant. Coming in, if anybody's missed that, that's the premium licenses for Power Apps have both been reduced by 50% on the price, through any kind of licensing, which is a massive reduction, and just proves that they're listening, I think, Alan, don't you think?
Right. So, but even with that 50%, it works fine for small, medium enterprise. For large enterprise, if you have 100,000 user or above, right? Imagine you have 100,000 user and you want to build an app that is for the entire company. Let's say at $5, that is $500,000 per month. Right.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to find the business value, right? That's always been the challenge with the Power Platform. It's great value out of the box as part of the E1, E3, E5, but then you've got to find that extra bit, and I always feel like it's a bit of a challenge proving where you can add that value in the business. But it is there. It is there in most businesses.
So they are listening, and I was very, very glad that we managed to work out something attractive this year, and going forward. I'm actually expecting the group to be coming up with a lot more of creative stuff now that we have access to all the premium features. 50% discount from now on for everybody.
Yeah, that's the announcement, just taken with a picture on my mobile phone. But it is on the pricing news blog, I think. So go check it out. If I can find a link, I'll post it in there real quick for you. So that's a fantastic announcement to make. Well done, Alan. And again, congratulations to all the MVPs, including Alan and Sancho, who's still on the call, clearly, for requalifying this year as an MVP. So congrats and well done. And with that, Alan, thank you so much for joining us. It's always an education having you on here. I'm always amazed at what you guys can achieve. And today did not disappoint. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
More than welcome.